All right, college football fans. So this is the third and final video of our website update reveal, cfpcollegefootball.com. And we're going to look at the individual teams and what those pages look like. So if you want to get information, so I'm a Northwestern guy, and if I want to look and see what's Nebraska looking like, what do they have? What did they look like last year? What were some of the things that they did well? What are some of their strengths and weaknesses? So I'm going to go up to the 2022 preview and go to the Big Ten. And again, at the time of this video, we've got the SEC released and we've got the Big Ten released, coming up with the ACC as the next one, and Big 12 and Pac-12 soon to follow. But as I go down and I'm going to find, okay, Nebraska, they're in the West. And so my Northwestern Wildcats are opening up against the Cornhuskers out in Dublin, Ireland. So what does Big Red look like this year? Well, if I click on that, it's going to take me to the Google Sheet that I have compiled on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Gives information about Scott Frost. He's in his 5th season. So pretty much and it's a fluid depth chart, but at the time of release, this is really the most recent depth chart, and it's subject to change, obviously. And much like the conference preview, the guys in red are the transfers that came over and are new to the program this year. And they're put pretty much in order of depth. So you'll see Casey Thompson, Logan Smothers, Chubba Purdy. That, again, could change. And then Anthony Grant looking to be their top back, Ramir Johnson. And those two might be interchangeable. To the right here, you've got their stats from a season ago. And obviously some guys like Adrian Martinez are gone. But you can kind of see relative to last year, what can we expect from guys who are here? So, and it's put in order of quarterbacks at the top, then rushers, or, guys who carried the rock on the ground. And then the third chart here is pass catching. So receivers and tight ends and so forth. As you look at some of the other keys here, the offensive line, if they're boxed, that means that they're a returning starter. So I can see that Nebraska has 3 returning starters from last year. And by returning starters, I'm going with guys who started at least half the season. So unlike some preseason magazines who might count somebody who started 2 games as a returning starter, for me, they had to have started at least half the games. So, and some of these might have had multiple guys who started half the season. If they are in italics, that means that they were injured last year, or if they're in yellow, that means that they're injured this year or suspended or possibly off the team. So someone like Mr. Newelly from Nebraska, unfortunately, is suspended for the use of an illegal substance. And this is not to call him out, but you can kind of see what that means there. Some offensive notes from last year, and that will be updated as the games go on. So yours truly, I'm going to be making some of those notes. You can see some of the offensive coaches, but especially the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator on the defensive page we'll get to here in a minute, as well as a link to what I find to be a pretty reputable Nebraska page that gave us a depth chart projection, at least post-spring. Same thing for defense. You've got, when it comes up here, there we go. So again, defensive chart, and I also put down here in the notes what type of defense they run. So we see that Nebraska under Eric Chinander in his 5th season runs a 3-4 style defense. Some notes about their team last year, as well as notes in the margin here. So in column G, I'm going to highlight someone like Garrett Nelson. I really, really like this kid. I put him as our first team all Big Ten outside linebacker. He's a great pass rusher, just a great football player, great dude. And again, you can see their stats here. This is taken right from the University of Nebraska football website. So this is not something that's doctored by anybody else. This comes right from the source. And that's done that way for all of the FBS Power 5 teams. And eventually it'll get that way for the group of 5 teams. Special teams, you can see, who's going to be making kicks, who's going to be returning kicks. And again, some of the notes and stats from last year, as well as transfer portal additions. The schedule page tells you how they did last year and a Wikipedia rundown of their schedule last year and their results. a lot of good information here. So it gives you the score. And then I put on the column to the left here how many games they played where they were in a close game, what I dubbed as 7 points or less. I know some people say, well, what about single-digit games? Because Nebraska was 0-9 in single-digit losses last year, but one of those losses was by 9 points, I think. And so I'm going to go close game as a game where you feasibly could have tied, because a touchdown and an extra point, that's a lot easier, especially in crunch time, than an 8-point deficit. So scoring a touchdown is good, but what are your odds of making that 2-point conversion? So that's where I put it at 7. How this team fared against the top 25 last year, how they did against top 10 teams, and how they did as being ranked themselves. So the NCAA statistics, with the green rows being offensive categories, the pink being defensive, and then in terms of their national rank, there's a key down here. So if they ranked 30th or higher, obviously that's good, and that's going to be highlighted in yellow here. And if they ranked 90th or lower, that's not good, and they're going to be highlighted in red, this like maroonish color here. The game-by-game starters on both offense and defense. So if you don't believe me that a certain person was a starter for a certain amount of time, you can go and check it out there. And then their schedule for this year, and coming soon will be the Chappie's picks on here, where I will put in whether I'm going to chalk up this game as a win or a loss, as well as some of the trends for that schedule. So in recent history, what is Nebraska's record against Northwestern? How is Scott Frost done against Pat Fitzgerald? How is Nebraska done against Pat Fitzgerald? That will all be here. And then, of course, my projection of what their overall record will be, what their record will be in the Big Ten, and eventually over to the right here will be numbers that will be filled in. These are from last year, but it'll show kind of like their relative strength of schedule, getting points for playing an away game, playing a team who I perceive to be a top 25 school, a top 10 school, extra points if they're playing a ranked team or a perceived ranked team back to back, and so forth. And there's a description of my strength of schedule rankings on my website as well. Kind of going elsewhere from there. There's also the recruiting tab. So you can see how Nebraska has done with their recruiting haul this year. This is according to rivals.com, the number of stars and the total ranking. So that's ranked from their highest rated recruit down to their lowest rated recruit. Some program information, and this is one of my favorite tabs because it gives you stadium information with capacity, some of their rivalry games, and what the name of the trophy is for that, the traditions for that school, what they like to do, what, if you're a Nebraska fan or if you're watching a Nebraska football game and you're wondering, why are they doing this? This is explained right here. Various links to reputable sites that cover that specific team. And there's a lot of them for the Big Red here, as well as social media accounts that I follow or that I think are good follows, people that you might want to follow if you're looking for good Cornhusker coverage. So some of you GBR fans here, you might see yourself here. And if you're not on here, no offense, please, no hurt feelings. Let's all be adults. Let's all be big boys. And if you think you should be on here, send it out to me on Twitter. And first of all, make sure you're following me. But if you send that to me and I check it out, I'm most likely gonna put you on that list. So let me hear about it. And then finally, a tab that's not really used is kind of the preview. So some of these teams, if I get around to it, I'll put it in here. Some of the perceived strengths and weaknesses, or strengths and questions, I guess. I don't like using negative terminology. So I don't know that it's necessarily a weakness unless you're talking relative terms, but maybe a question mark that they have that Nebraska fans in this case are hoping get answered by the time the season kicks off and they start rolling. So that's our team by team page. So again, questions, comments, send it to me on Twitter at ChappieCFB. Thanks for following. Thanks for logging in. Share the word, spread the goodness that is CFPcollegefootball.com. I'm Chappie. This is what I know. This is what I love. And you're a big part of it.